dude. I literally just pulled this
God.
one out. Look at that one. I bet you $50 you haven't seen one of those before.
No way. That's rad. You got Fauci.
I got Fauci.
Oh, nice.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the podcast. Welcome to the show. We've got Mr. Anthony Fauci here with us.
That's right.
In bobblehead form.
Are you boosted?
So, tell us about your vaccination. Tell us how it was getting vaccinated, Mr. BJ Baldwin.
I have not gotten a chance to get vaccinated yet.
I'm getting around to it. It's on my to-do list.
It's on my to-do list.
All those drive-through lines are closed down, and we don't have.
Yeah, that's unfortunate, but I will do it eventually. I kind of promise. No, I don't really know that, given my experience, that I would need that, because I've been tested 25 times in the last 2 years. I've even taken care of people that have been sick, like my daughter's mother, Lisa, got COVID. Zoe got COVID. My son got COVID, all at the same time. And I was over there like taking care of them, make sure they're all right. They never really got that sick. They were just tired.
It's like the flu.
Yeah.
The sniffles, you don't feel good for a little bit. I bet you I had it 10 times. But, okay.
Yeah.
Drink your orange juice, go to bed, get some sleep, fucking, you know what I mean, chicken noodle soup, and you're good the next day.
Well, I had, after I took care of them, I had a symptom like day 4, maybe. I had like kind of like a scratchy throat. Nothing that was like really bothering me, but I get in like really cold water every day for a few minutes. Water is 35, 38 degrees, and I got in the water and it just went away. And I tried testing every day that they were sick, testing myself. They were all testing positive. I tested negative every single time, and I've still never tested positive for it. Yeah. So I don't know. I feel left out.
Dude, we went to, it was in Vegas, actually. We were going to, I don't know where Saxony went. I think we were going to Mexico. I think we were doing an OUR op or something like that. And the testing thing was those drive-thrus. Uh-huh. It was the most janky, disgusting, gnarly thing. But like, we had to get this test to get on the plane. I forget why we did it. You literally go, it's like a drive-thru. Is that Sax? Where's Sax? Anyways, you go through the drive-thru, you pull up, the lady comes out from the single-wide trailer with the fucking half white, half dusty ass thing, and like they rip open the cotton swabs, and I'm like, how is this like medically approved? How does this work? This is not sanitary at all. Like you're gonna catch the most deadly virus on the planet while you're waving this fucking thing around, sticking it in my car up my nose, and like, oh, sorry, I bumped into the mirror on the way out. You know what I mean? It's
and
like,
this is in Mexico?
No, this was here. This was in Vegas.
Oh, okay.
I forget where we were going somewhere, and we had to get a test.
Yeah.
Anyways, I back in March of 20. I did an Instagram post or a Facebook post that said, coronavirus is a scam. Y'all have been duped. And, of course, I got flagged, I got banned, whatever. But I stand by it. It's the biggest fucking scam ever.
Yeah, I don't know that there's so much stuff going on. Like, why is there I don't know how much planning went into this. Of course, you and I have both looked at a wide variety of different content pieces that have explained certain things, but for for medical corporations to make $28 billion off of
the whole thing. I mean, it's almost one of those things where it's like, where do you start? Where do you start talking about it? Like, there's so many levels of insanity to it that it's like, now you're seeing people drop dead. You're seeing football players, super healthy people, like teenagers, kids. They're like, after football practice, died. Like, kid in class just fucking died. It's definitely not normal. It's definitely not something that you're like, yeah, this is just the average day in America.
Yeah, it's super, super crazy. But, there is a silver lining in all this. The flu went away. What did they have? 1,100 people that got the flu last year and the year
The silver lining is that if it ended up being some fucking whacked out shit, we're going to thin the herd really quick. You know what I mean? Yeah.
And now there's the only reason I know that there's some other different variants that came out, supposedly, is did you see the Jimmy Fallon thing where he's singing about like some variant that has some crazy name and stuff?
Yeah.
Like, that dude, I used to love that dude.
I know, he was funny as fuck.
Hilarious.
And all of a sudden he did the song. Did you see the coronavirus song that they did?
God,
and you're like, dude, this isn't serious. Like, somebody tell me that some producer was like, hey, I'm going to vote that this is a bad idea, but they shipped it anyways. It's like, what the fuck are you guys doing? Like,
Yeah.
The who was the guy that did the hamburger and the French fries? The governor of New York, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And remember how he's eating
burger.
the fucking French fries? He's like, oh, and if you get your fucking shot, you get these like amazing. They were giving away hamburgers and French fries in exchange for you getting vaccinated. It's not a very. You didn't really have to sell it that hard. It's like, oh, I get a cheeseburger. Yeah, I'll fucking let you inject this.
Yeah.
Wacky juice into me. You know what I mean?
I've had. At the Baja 1000s, it's all like around flu season. Obviously, it's in November, right? So for years of going to the Baja 1000 and competing in the Baja 1000, I have routinely got my flu shot like before every Baja 1000 until 10 years ago, or 11 years ago, and I forgot it once,
and you just didn't get them.
I didn't get the flu.
Yeah,
and then that year I won the Baja 1000. The next year I won the Baja 1000 again. I did not get the flu shot since then, and I would get the flu every single year. And I always thought it's because like I feel very blessed that I'm able to do what I do. You know, I get to drive a $1 million piece of equipment that goes through 3 or 4 foot bumps at 115 miles an hour. That's my job. So I'm very, very grateful. So whenever I'm around fans, like I embrace them. I'm very grateful for their presence, stuff like that. And Mexico is crazy.
Oh yeah.
With their fan base, as you know, because you've raced down there too. So I'm over there. People are tugging on my shirt and like trying to get pictures of me and all that stuff. And I'm shaking hands and in contact with a wide variety of people. So I always kind of think like somebody in there, the 4,000 hands that I shook had to have the flu, and they had to have it every single year, because I've had the flu at the 1,000 probably 30% of the time.
Really?
I almost won one year with the flu.
You were sick as fuck, weren't you?
I was really, really sick.
Is that when you Ironman it? That wasn't the year you Ironman it, was it?
I did Ironman it that year, but I lost by 3 minutes and 48 seconds.
Tell everybody about that. Tell everybody what that. I don't like to do the whole intro like, hey, tell everybody your story. Fuck all that. If you want to know who BJ Baldwin is, fucking Google his ass. You'll figure it out. But
I'm a really good driver.
Tell everybody about that. He races trucks, but Ironmanning it. Because like when I met you, I had bought that 7100 truck. I knew nothing about off-road racing. BJ Baldwin is like the god of off-road racing, the whole deal. And so we met. I don't even remember when it was. It's some race, maybe the Mint or something like that.
Yeah.
But tell everybody about that. Like, what is Ironmanning the Baja? What is that? Because it's pretty fucking impressive.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Fucking cheers to that, man. I tell you what.
Now, I've raced it 4 times and can tell you that like a 12-hour stint in a car, you're pissing blood, like if you're lucky. You know what I mean? You don't know what fucking planet you're on when you're done. And that's in my janky ass truck, not $1 million fucking, geyser. Do you have geysers or?
Mine's built by Dave Peralt, maintained by Chris Allen. He's a lead technician. She's a big fan of Lions Night. She's a big fan
dig
of
it.
yours.
But tell everybody what Ironmanning is, because it's a pretty fucking impressive feat.
Well, throughout the history of the Baja 1000, you're, especially the Peninsula Run, you're in the truck for in excess of 20 hours. And it's like a 20-hour plane crash. I mean, it's...
I've never heard it put like that. It's actually a great description of it.
Yeah, I got to quote Mario Andretti. He's done it before 20 years ago, and that's how he described it, like a 24-hour plane crash. But, as it relates to Ironmaning the Baja 1000, you have to know a lot about yourself and your physiology and your physical makeup and what type of athlete that you are and what you're capable of. And you're also... you also have to be really hard as it relates to, I may die of cardiac arrest, but I'm going to get to the finish line even if that happens. You have to have that mentality. It's one thing, and not many people do it. I've done it like 5 times. I've also had drivers that have done certain sections. I always do the longest section. I'll generally do about 600 or 700 miles, and but I've Ironman the 1,000 quite a few times. I've won it. I'm the only person in history to win it 2 consecutive times in the trophy truck division, and Ironmanning both of those years. But it's one thing to go like 500 miles. Like, that's gnarly.
Oh no,
that is gnarly. You're in the paint shaker for 500 miles. Yeah. That's gnarly. It's another thing to go 600 miles.
Dude, what was that? So people that don't know, Ironmanning it is literally starting and finishing the race. You don't get out. You drive the entire time.
Drive the entire time. Everybody else has.
How many co-drivers did you have?
Just one.
So he rolled with you the whole time?
The whole time. He actually, the first year, he actually got hypothermia, and he passed out about 100 miles from the finish. Like could not stay awake.
Fuck, man.
And Kit Cope, you know Kit, really,
yeah.
right? Yeah. He helped me out with dietary nutrition and hydration plan as it relates to that, because he's really, really smart about, physiology and athletic performance and stuff like that. Gave my, he knows my height, weight, age, athletic ability, and he wrote me a program as it relates to nutrition, hydration, and stamina and cognitive performance for something of that nature, of course. Regardless of that, I could see dead people at the finish line. Like, I was really worn out. I was bleeding here on the inside of my thighs, my heels, and the top of my shoulder blades, my butt crack. And I always joke around like I get my period once a year, right? So I must be the first female to win the Baja 1000. No, but like, if you do this for like 20 hours straight, that's going to rub you a little bit raw. But you add a little bit of water, add a little bit of sand, a little bit of salt, perspiration, and before you know it, it's your nails rubbing together. So every part of your body that's just going like that, when you're, it wears you down quite a bit.
Dude, off-road racing is a trip, man. I mean, I've never driven a trophy truck and raced at that level. Like, for those that don't know, like, you have people racing $1 million trucks all the way down to Volkswagen Beetles, which, by the way, is there anybody out there that you have more respect for? Like, when you go, like, when you see the Volkswagen Beetles and you're like, you guys have giant fucking balls. Every time I pass one of them, I'm like, well played, fellas. Well, I mean, the fact that you got out in a Volkswagen Beetle and you're just like, da-da, and you can make it through the silt beds and shit like that, it's pretty fucking impressive.
No, they're in the paint shaker for a lot longer than we are, but we tend to, regardless of the class, to a certain extent, you tend to see the most vehicular violence as it relates to the wear and tear in your body, but the speed changes. Class 11, the bugs have it the worst. They're really rough ride. But like, I've raced class 10, I've raced class 1, I've raced some spec trucks, in the past, and they all feel about the same. The only thing that changes is like the speed. Like with class 10, I go like 60, 65 miles an hour down my test section. When in my race truck, I go 118 miles an hour down my test section. It's 3 and 4 foot bumps. But yeah, I love the sport because that form of motorsport, it is the only form of motorsport where you got a team of guys that are very, very passionate. They love it. They think it's amazing, and it's a lifelong passion. They don't ever get sick of it. And a team of really smart guys build a magnificent vehicle with all the funding in the world. Everybody, has the best parts on all their stuff. Our rule book is one page. It's not like NASCAR. That's like a phone book, old school phone book. But at the end of the day, we produce the only race car that doesn't accelerate well. It doesn't decelerate very well. And it doesn't like to change direction, which is like, well, that doesn't seem
that doesn't seem fun.
That doesn't seem fun at all. The reason why it's so impressive is because it doesn't have to slow down for much.
Yeah. You don't like to slow down for much anyways.
No. I like
including giant rocks that are right in front of you.
Oh, you got to bring that up. Oh, let's drink to that.
How long have you been racing? Yeah. I remember that. You know why? You know what's funny about that? That year, you left your tracker on, and so we knew that it was in between my sections.
Yeah,
because it was what, like 30 miles in or 40 miles in or something like that
to the crossover road. It was like 550 miles in. I think I was in third place.
And what people don't know is that you have a tracker in your car, and you can go online and you can see who's what and who's where, and you can track them around the whole thing. And the race course is going one way,
I really
and
do
then
miss that rock.
BJ's tracker is going towards America, and everybody's like, "What the fuck is he doing? Like, he's going the wrong way."
Another drink in honor of that 60,000-pound rock that I destroyed. Fucking killed.
You've been racing your whole life, yeah?
Yeah, well, let's get back to the rock because I got
tell us the story about the rock. Dude, we have an entire bottle of whiskey. We can tell all the fucking stories.
Do we have 2?
Yeah, we do.
I like to first say
4 years ago.
I don't really know because I still am suffering from brain damage from that.
Yeah. You're like, I've hit a lot of rocks. Which one are we talking about?
Well,
was
this
4 or
one,
5 years ago?
I don't feel like I feel like it's disrespectful to call that a rock. It was more like a parking garage. It was really big. It was the size of the short bus. I mean, it was like the size of a motorhome.
Tell everybody what that's like, because I know what it's like to wreck a race car off road, and it's hard to describe it. But tell everybody what that's like.
Well, it's more fun, obviously, if you have video, and you go tumbling and parts fucking fly everywhere, and there's fiberglass and, you know, all this broken shit everywhere. That didn't happen with me. I dissipated all of the energy in one impact, which was, it's not the best way to do it, because the big crashes, which I have, I'm fortunate enough, you know, that I've been a professional, not at driving, but at unfucking myself when things go sideways, where I haven't had too many big crashes like that. I think I've only had like 5, but the Boulder was the worst one by far. So what had happened was there was a master switch for the lights, and of course I got a billion candlelight power.
Yeah.
$50,000 worth of off-road lights on the front of my truck. So I can go 136 miles an hour, 2 o'clock in the morning.
Right.
And I had accidentally bumped that master switch. It wasn't even there until that particular race. And my navigator at the time, you know, he probably could have done a little bit better job, and I'll explain that later. But have all of the lights on. Right. And you know as well as I do, when you're in the dust, you turn that shit down. You turn the volume down on that shit. It's just like driving with your brights on in fog because you can't see anything.
I don't think people there isn't a video out there that can describe the dust in Mexico or the silt in Mexico. There's nothing that you, in my opinion, you can say that, like, to truly describe it. When you experience it, it's like it's one of the most terrifying yet exhilarating things when, like, you literally can't see past the hood of your car. You're doing 100 miles an hour, and all you're relying on is literally the GPS that you're hopefully online.
A little bit of road feel, you know, with the tires.
And you're like, I'm praying that I'm not headed this way, or that there's a fucking car or a rock or something in the way. You know what I mean?
Yeah, with that, you know, like everybody that's listening to this has driven in the fog to a certain extent. So, like, nobody would ever, that's had their license for more than a couple of years, that's driven in fog, they would never turn their brights on in fog because you can't see as good as if you don't have fog. Now take your candlelight power of your production vehicle and multiply it by a factor of 100.
You're right.
So it drastically reduces your visibility. And I'm behind a motorcycle. They don't produce that much dust. And I'm like, I really don't want to kill that guy. That would look really bad in the newspaper. So let's fucking be safe and take care of him and wait for our opportunity.
Right.
So I recognize the size of the cloud, given like how far we are away from it. And you know this as well as I do. Once you get closer to the cloud, you know, the visibility gets worse, but you can see that the cloud is getting smaller. And then you have a pocket to where you can see, okay, that's where that is.
But you have to be really close to what's right in front of you
close, like
to have that pocket.
3 or 4 car lengths to get that pocket, right? To where it hasn't risen enough to cloud your visibility.
It's close enough that you can't stop.
Yes, but you can change the direction of the mayhem if you needed to. You could hit something that was not human,
right?
You know,
And
really, your only fear is that of a guy on a quad or a 4-wheeler.
Yeah.
If it's a UTV, it really sucks, and you can get hurt, but you're not going to get killed. Like if you hit a guy on a motorcycle, he's done.
You can't nerf a motorcycle in a trophy truck,
hell no,
or anything else.
I knew that this was a guy on a motorcycle because of the size of the cloud and the profile of the cloud. And I saw him going back and forth through the crossover road where there's a bunch of cliffs and stuff like that. So I wanted to be really, really careful with this guy. And I knew that this particular stretch of road, which I got to, which I was on for about 90 seconds, I knew it was straight, a little bit longer than that. But I told my navigator at the time, I'm like, dude, stay on that shit. Like, we're going really fast. I'm in 6th gear. We're going 96 miles an hour. And I want to know, because I know it's not going to be straight forever.
Right.
You know,
Give me a heads up.
I've seen this movie before. So he's like, no, I got it. And he's toggling through the PI dash. The PI dash, as you know, is, you know, water temperature, oil temperature, trans temperature, coolant pressure, tire pressure, all this stuff. at a point in time where I have not been leaning on this thing and been very, very demanding of the performance of what is available in the truck.
Right.
Like if I was on the chip, bouncing off of everything in God's creation, I'd be like, all right, keep an eye on the pie dash because
Right.
I know the fucking converter is going to get to 336 degrees pretty soon. But no, I was cruising middle of sixth gear, just trying to work my way through this. Mind you, I was going 96 miles an hour on a road that yielded the ability to harvest about 115 to 120 out of. But again, I was trying not to kill a motorcycle guy. And that would have been the second motorcycle I drove over. That guy didn't die either, but his motorcycle did. So I'm like, keep an eye on that. He's toggling through the pie dash to look at temperatures that were never going to get warm because I was not that demanding out of the truck. And he says, right 3 double danger rock. And he was not calling the rock that I impacted. And when he called it, I was already in the fucking air. So I did not have any aerodynamic ability to slow the truck down in the air. And I missed the rock that I had marked in pre-running, which is good.
Right.
Yay. That rock was about the size of the refrigerator. The rock I hit was about the size of a Monaco motorhome. It was easily 50,000 pounds. And when I touched it, it was the first thing that touched the earth, the front bumper. It wasn't the tires. It was the front bumper. And I went about 6 feet through the rock, and I got it slowed down from 96 miles an hour to about 82 miles an hour. It went from 82 to 0 in about 14 inches.
Wow.
So for a minute there, I forgot my first name.
Is that your craziest crash?
It's
You've
not
been racing
the
motorsports
sexiest.
since you were a kid. Right?
Yeah, it's, I've had sexier crashes. Now, when I say sexier, I mean there was parts flying off. It looked like I was like
Yard
done
sailing
for a yard sale. All the arms ripped off. Tires are 300 yards away. I've had crashes that were sexier, but that was the worst because I took all of the kinetic energy instead of 8, 10, 12 different impacts where the front bumper, rear bumper, front bumper, door, A-frame, all that stuff is hitting the ground over the process of a crash that takes about 6 or 7 seconds. I took it all. I took
One shot, bang.
60 G's.
That's it.
Like that. And it sounded like, you're out hunting rabbit or whatever and somebody dumps a double barrel shotgun in the floorboard. It was so loud.
Really?
It was so loud. It was like a gunshot going off in a car with all the windows up. So, not that I know what that's like. But, I said, Willie, are you okay? And I don't know how that may have came out given my condition. It might have not come out like that, but I know from another crash
You're like,
that
that's
I
what I
said
recall saying.
Yeah.
No, whether that's what I said or not is totally different.
I know from another crash when my head came out the window and hit the ground during a 66 mile an hour impact. I said to my buddy Jason, this is in Laughlin, I said, hey brother, you okay? You all right? It came out like, because I could not.
Yeah.
I thought it came out like that, but my speech was so messed up from the concussion that, and I don't have a recording of how I spoke to him, but or what it sounded like, but I said, are you all right? Are you all right? Are you all right? And he took like 30 seconds to really get it together and be like, yeah, I think I'm good.
Yeah.
And we got out of the truck and there was 4,700 pound rocks around, and the rock that I contacted was gone. So I reproduced, from that standpoint, when you send a 7,000 pound missile into a rock at 82 miles an hour, I haven't done the math on the kinetic energy transfer.
You're a math guy, I can tell, dude.
I assume it's more than a 9 millimeter projectile.
What's your favorite part? I mean, for those people who are listening that don't know, I mean, I think you and I met, I don't know, 7-8 years ago when I first bought my truck is when I connected with you.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, the racing world is a pretty small world. You're either like, the McMillans, BJ Baldwin, Robbie. It's kind of a small world, especially in the trophy truck. I mean, you guys are driving the elite of the elite of the elite, the best of the best. But the thing I've always liked is like, you're just a fucking full send. When it comes to racing, you know what I mean? Like full fucking send. You know what I mean? What's your favorite thing about racing?
Well, one of the things that is my favorite is that people see me as that guy.
Yeah.
But I'm actually terrified of crashing.
Really?
So I leave a lot on the table. When you see like me, flying sideways and there's a crowd of people left and right and they're taking pictures and trying to touch the truck and stuff like that, that's really only me at like 92%. The moments that I really cherish are uncomfortable. They're wildly uncomfortable. And that is like, Bryce is my homeboy. He lives in Vegas too. Bryce, he's a fucking savage. Or Rob McCachran.
Rob's like OG.
Yeah, Rob's OG. He's the shit. It's those moments where I fucking hate driving like that. I really fucking hate it until I get out of the truck and I'm like, fuck, I did that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I was fucking terrified. And I compartmentalized that fear and took exceptional risks to drive at 104% of my capability, which is outside of my capability by 5%. Mm-hmm. I should be like, when I'm really moving, I'm at like 99%. When I have to make time on somebody that is a fucking killer, like, Bryce, Andy McMillan, Rob McCachran, Larry Ragland, my El Maestro, like those guys back in the day, that's when I have to run like an uncomfortable pace. And those are the moments that I cherish the most because they are tattooed in my brain cognitively forever. Like, I can't believe I pulled that off because I felt like
you're like, that
very
shouldn't have
close.
worked.
Yeah,
that
it
should
shouldn't
not
have worked. Exactly. That's a perfect way of putting it. That shouldn't have worked. But yeah, I've had some interesting moments in motorsports, and I've had a long career, and I don't plan on retiring from racing till I'm 150 years old.
That's dope, dude. Why do you think that you catch a lot of heat from people? Because I mean, you're out there, and I mean, forget everything else. Let's just stick to the racing, because you're a very outspoken person on social media, and I appreciate that as somebody who's outspoken on social media. I get it.
I know you get a little bit of the flack.
I get a little bit of the flack too, but there's an interesting thing that happens, especially when you're in a competitive experience like racing, because there's a lot of people that just root against you. There's a lot of people like, I want to see that guy crash. I want you crash, and the people are like, yeah, see, you're fucking whatever. People don't realize what it takes to like compete at that level and to truly, like, you have to be. This is me speaking from, I've never driven the trophy truck, but having raced the Razor, raced 70. You have to be. You have to go past that line of safety and past that line of sanity to be the best, period, and to win, period, because you're talking about the most insane conditions that you would ever take a motor vehicle through, right? And you're talking
and they
about
don't slow down,
right? You can't.
Yeah.
So tell me what that's like. Talk about what that's like, because you catch a lot of fucking shit publicly, because you talk a lot of shit, which is great. I love it. I'm a fucking huge fan of it. But dude, you have to. You got to have, like, a lot of people think that the humble and like, no, like in order to win the Baja, you got to have some serious screws loose. But you got to have giant fucking huevos to do it. And you have to be able to step into a place and say, I'm the best. You know what I mean? And you've done that. I mean, you've won the Baja 1000. It's without question one of the most, if not the most prestigious off-road race on the planet.
It's the most difficult.
So talk about that, because you catch a lot of shit, and I watch the ramp up, and I know what it's like. It's going into an MMA fight. I mean, you're talking some smack. I mean, you can't go into that space thinking, I'm second or I'm third and whatever. Be like, no, I'm the baddest motherfucker on the planet. Well, and a lot of people don't like that.
Well, I think it's because regardless of how people think about me, I think that I speak from a factual standpoint. On a good day, if I've had a good day and I've done the work and I've prepared myself, I think I could beat anybody, and that's just a fact. Yeah. It's not like I'm like, trying to toot my own horn or any shit like that. Like, if that wasn't the case, why do they try and like brag about somebody that beat me that shouldn't have beat me? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, they don't ever say like that, I'm really good, really talented, I work really hard, and I'm, one of the best drivers in the world. They don't give me any credit for that. But if somebody that shouldn't have beat me beats me somewhere, then they're like, oh, fuck, did he kick BJ's ass? Like, if I'm really the guy that sucks that bad, why are you talking about me like that? Like, you know, and at the end of the day, I don't fucking believe in talent one bit. I don't think it fucking exists. I really don't. I believe in obsession. Obsession. And, you know, Ken said it best. God rest his soul. He fucking lost him last week. But he said something that I kind of gravitated towards. He's like, and he was a guy that, you know, I'm glad we're bringing up Ken. He kind of fell into the conversation, but where he said, like, you know, he started his motorsports career at 37 years old.
Yeah, it was, yeah.
I started, you know, at 17. I started the pro level in trophy trucks at 23. But he wanted to be the best driver that he could be. I wanted to be the best driver that existed on the planet until the end of time. You know, and those are two different mindsets with kind of similar goals. Let's see, you know, and he ended up being like one of the best, and it's specifically as it relates to car control, where we, you know, where we aligned and where we gravitated towards having that relationship. But I always wanted to be showered and half drunk by the time second place crossed the finish line. That was always my goal. I've almost gotten there a couple times. But yeah, I'm blessed and very lucky to say that I race against the baddest motherfuckers on the planet. I really do believe that, because it's, I mean,
you have, period. It's not a question. You have.
Thank you,
in an off-road world,
appreciate it.
You have. And anybody that knows anything, you Google it, you look up who's the baddest off-road racers in the world, you're racing against the best, and you are amongst the best, period. I'm not just saying that because you're my homie, but it's just what it is, you know? Very few people have ever raced these races, period, let alone finished these races, let alone podiumed in these races. So it's like, to be able to do that is a significant fucking feat.
Yeah, it's very difficult. It's one thing for, like, you know, and no disrespect implied or intended, but if you're going around in circles making left-hand turns, you know, throw a little bit of shade.
It does look kind of fun, though. I would love to race NASCAR, but I want to be like Tony Stewart. Cars. I'd be the guy that would, like, get out and, like, fuck you, and, like, throw my helmet at some shit and cause fucking wrecks and stuff like that. I met him yesterday. He was at Ken's thing. Really?
But yeah, it's different. It's a very different sport than any other sport, because you know, you're only in the car for 15 minutes or an hour. You know, when you're off-road racing, you're in the car for an hour and it feels like 8 hours. So, you know, if you go into, like, all the abuse that goes into your body, a 250-mile race, which is one of the shortest races you or I fucking racing, it feels like you've been in there for a fucking week. Yeah. You're beat to
You're done.
Shit.
You're just, like, fucked. You feel like you've just gotten kicked in every rib, kicked in the legs, your neck, you can't move. Your arms feel like they're fucking jelly.
Oh, my God. Especially at 1,000, when you're Ironman the 1,000. Like, you are scented. Like, you take a shower, you're like making your own butter, because your armpits and, like, everything else is, like, fucking smells disgusting, like you went swimming in a septic pool or something like that. You smell so awful. You can't really smell that, but and you're so worn down, like, you take a nap for 4 hours and you feel like you've been sleeping for. Every time I've finished 1,000, like, as it relates to the Ironman 1,000, I sleep for 4 hours. I could see dead people when I cross the finish line. And when I sleep for 4 hours, I'm like, I feel like I've been sleeping for a week. Yeah. And I've healed like 60% of my body in that 4 hours, because I have not moved anything, you know. It's one thing, like I was saying before, I never got to finish that, but, like, going 500 miles is gnarly. Going 600 miles is like going the first 500. So it has an exponential effect on your body, especially on your mind. And the last 20 miles is like the first 1,000. Yeah. It's gnarly. So 1,000 miles by yourself feels like 6,000 or 7,000 miles.
What do you do to prepare for that? Like, what do you do? Like, what's your regimen? I know that you get a lot of pre-running in and you do a lot of testing down in Vegas and get the truck out, but what's that like for you, like, mentally, to get ready for that race? Like, what goes through your brain?
I'll be honest with you, now that I'm, you know, in my quarter life crisis.
We'll call it older. We can say older. Now that we're older.
We can say older.
You know what I mean? How old are you now?
I'm 43 and a half.
44. So we're about the same.
Isn't that ironic? I just went to Ken's funeral and I'm 43 and his number was 43, so that fucked with me a little bit. So, but, Yeah, it's now that I'm a little bit older, I'm willing to share a little bit of secrets. I don't fucking do any of that. What I do is I'll take time as it relates to, say I have a meeting in Texas, right? And Tori knows this as well as I do. I'll be like a little bit worn out, and I'll drive to fucking Texas. And the reason I'll drive to Texas, or I'll drive to LA, or I'll drive to Utah or whatever, is because it's fucking boring. You see road dots like repetitively down the road. There's no tree to dodge. There's no fucking like, don't mow over these spectators. Don't fold this car up. Don't send this guy into the afterlife. No, it's fucking boring. It's really boring. There's no adrenaline pulse or response from driving down the highway. So it's fucking work. It's a lot of work to be like, all right, cognitively, I have to be able to process everything, look at everything for less than a second, calculate, process, and execute whatever I need to do. Because there ain't fucking nothing there.
Yeah.
There's nothing there. And, you know, Tori and I had an event, I believe it was 8 months ago. We had, we were headed to Salt Lake, here in Salt Lake, and there was a F-150 that was parked sideways in traffic, like I believe it was like midnight or 1 a.m. It's parked sideways. All the lights are off except for the interior light, and that doesn't have enough candlelight power to tell you at 85 miles an hour that you should probably slow down. Right. So I'm in my T-Rex, and I hit the binders like super hard because there's like, okay, and it's going downhill. Like, and I'm not going like 110, 115, 315 like I usually do if I'm in the Porsche. In my truck, I'm going like 85 miles an hour. I just passed a motorhome and towing a trailer, which obviously, as you know, the braking distance for a setup like that is significantly different than that of a T-Rex. So, dump on the binders. I see somebody in the cab from X amount of distance away, not nearly enough to come to a complete stop in time to stop from contacting them at some level. I was about a car length and a half short. But I dumped in the binders, the headlights, the weight transfer in something like that, like a Raptor or a T-Rex, is significantly different than an F-150 or a diesel or something, because it transfers weight because all the travel, right? By the way, Raptors and where's the camera that I'm talking to? Raptors and T-Rexes are not like trophy trucks. They're significantly different.
They don't have as much travel.
No, they don't. But
and if you don't know what the hell we're talking about, you just Google it. If you don't know what the binders are, Google it. If you don't know what travel is, Google it.
Yeah, I should be a little bit more clear for the people that are listening. But I drove, like I had enough braking distance to go around, and I prayed there was nobody standing on the side of the road, because I was all the way like burning it down, trying to get slowed down as fast as possible and go around them and face the headlights the opposite direction to make sure that 55,000 pound piece of equipment cumulatively would have enough time to slow down for this, because there's no lights on at all. This girl got clipped by a semi. But that is a classic example of being able to have a high rate of attention and receiving information points in an environment where there's not a lot going on. So I try and, to answer your question, like training for the thousands, I try to do stuff that's really boring and that I'm tired. But you still have to make decisions. I still have to make decisions, and that's an event that probably saves a couple lives. Where's my cage? Wild. I'm a fucking hero.
That's wild. It's wild because you would think like, athlete, champion, high level, that it would be like I've got, these regimens and processes that I go through and books that I read or things that I do. And it's like having raced off-road, like the monotony of it in a way. Like when it's 2 a.m. and you're rolling through Mexico, flying through Mexico, I mean, you pre-run, obviously, and you have the notes and the whole thing. Mm-hmm. It's really fucking weird. And it's hard to explain it here unless you've done it. I mean, I've done it, not in a trophy truck, but like you hit a silt bed at 2 a.m. and you're you're in this zone where it's just like you can only see what's literally the peripheral is where the edges of these lights are. You have no clue where you are. You're just in this zone. I'll never forget, as long as I live, we're doing close to 80 miles an hour, gravel road, middle of the night, trees in the side, the whole thing. And I felt like I went off a cliff. And we're dead on the line on the GPS. And we ended up going right into a silt bed. And it's just that.
And then it's dark.
And then you can't see shit.
$50,000 worth of lights.
It's just straight fucking orange. You can't see shit in front of you. You literally can see the edges of the car because the lights, and you got the bar ahead of you, and that's it. And it's the most terrifying. It's like jolts you in a way that like you could drink all the coffee in the fucking world, and it wakes you up in a way that you could never imagine. But like people think
it's like you're in a fist fight.
Yeah, like you're driving 80 miles an hour. You should just be aware and awake. And when you get into Mexico in these races, like you're literally doing 100 miles an hour trying to stay awake.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The adrenaline that goes through you that you've dumped however many times, it's so fucking wild.
It is super wild. The fastest I've ever gone in the dark is 136 miles an hour. And that was not because I could see what was in the very near future, is because I remembered from 2 weeks ago that this road is 2.3 miles.
Yeah.
And I have, X amount of seconds before the next right turn, But yeah, the way that I train for the 1,000 is doing shit that fucking puts me to sleep. Like being tired and having that same nutrition regimen, hydration regimen that Kit Cope has helped me out with. He's a savage as it relates to that shit. He's really gnarly at math too.
Oh yeah.
He's he's helped Ken a lot too. He's really, really good at figuring all that out. It's microdosing complex calories or complex carbohydrates and proteins and fats that keep you leveled out. Like people think you just like jump in this truck and you're just rolling. What people don't understand is you're literally in the truck. How when you Ironman, how long did it take? It was 20 hours and 15 minutes.
So you're in a vehicle that you don't get out of. You're pissing through a catheter. You're literally pissing through a hose that goes down the floor out. But if you imagine
50 miles,
you imagine
you're wetting yourself.
Oh, dude, I blew out a catheter one time, and I'll never forget as long as I live.
They don't make them big enough for you and I.
You can't sit down. Now I'm a very average guy. I'm okay with acknowledging that. But I'll never forget. Like we ended up breaking down, and I had to get out, and I got out, and I stepped on it. And
that'll do it too.
What people don't realize, it's a roll-on. It's basically a condom that you put on,
with
and there's a hose at the end,
glue.
And it goes down your leg, and you pee through it. And so we ended up breaking down. I had to get out, and I stepped on it, and it pulled the hose
I've done that
out of the end.
Thing, yeah.
So I felt like it was still on, and you're peeing, and all of a sudden I'm like, and it was with my son. My son was co-driving for me, and I'm driving and I'm pissing, and I still haven't figured out how to do it like fully set. So I try and find a straightaway.
Difficult.
That's
exactly how I do it.
Just a little bit. I find a straight, and you almost have to focus on pissing because your
it's
body's
the same as bench press.
You can't just like go. You have to like, okay, pee, push, go.
Yeah.
Pee, and I'm like, this doesn't feel right. And so I'm talking to my son through the comms. I'm like, hey, Will, look down. Is the floor wet? Is the floor wet? Because he can turn and see, but I can't look down because of my Hans, right? He's like, no, Dad. And I remember I had my gloves off, and I'm like patting myself. I'm like, fuck, I'm pissing my pants. And I'll never forget as long as I was like, fuck it, just keep going. And sure as shit, I got out and I smelled like piss, and I pissed my pants 3 or 4 times over 250 miles. But
I've had.
It's not a perfect science. You know what I'm saying?
No, it's not. It's very difficult to get those. It's not like rolling on a condom. Like. You roll on a condom, like I'm ready to go. That thing is like 3 times more thick than like a balloon.
Dude, one of my favorite, and I was going to ask you this, what's your favorite race experience? One of my favorite race experiences, memories ever, was at the Baja 500, and it was the first time my son was racing with me. Because I raced it twice, because I hadn't raced Mexico before. I didn't know, you hear all the stories about people getting, kidnapped and ransomed and all that other shit. I raced it 2 years with other guys, and it was the first year that he came down. And so he was going to start the race with me, and we were putting our catheters on. And so my buddy had a house right near the starting line. So we end up going in, and he's 11 years old at the time. 12, excuse me. He's 12 years old. So we go into the bathroom, and I'm like, all right, we got to put our catheters on. And he doesn't know what a catheter is. He's never put a condom on as a kid, right?
Yeah.
And, dude, I swear to God, he's 12 years old.
Okay.
And so of all of the races, of all of the cool shit, of podium and races and shit like that, all of the cool. This is my favorite memory. We end up going into the bathroom, and I'm putting my catheter. I'm like, all right, son, here's how you got to do this. Like, you know, Jade, I mean, you got your kid.
Yeah,
Imagine like putting on a catheter. I'm on one side of the bathroom, he's on the other, and I'm trying to explain to him, like, all right, you gotta, you know, you got to kind of rub your wiener a little bit and get it to where you can put this thing on. And I'm trying to, as a dad, think, how do I say this to my son? He doesn't even know what a condom is at 12 years old. And dude, it was without question one of the most priceless experiences ever, helping him put this catheter on. And then we're before we get in, we're still, you know, staging and all the trucks are lined up. We go out like way after you guys. And he's standing there, and I'll never forget as long as I have a picture of him. He's kind of posted up against this wall, and I remember seeing kind of, you know, the puddle comes out from the hose coming out of your leg. And I was like, hey, man, are you good? He's like, Dad, this is so weird. He's like, this is so weird. And dude, it was I almost got emotional. I was like, this is like the greatest thing ever to like share this experience with my kid.
No, it's gnarly. I can't wait for the moment that I get to share that with Jaden.
Yeah. What's your favorite race experience or your favorite race memory?
Losing.
Your favorite race memory of all of the racing, the whole deal. What's your favorite?
It's fucking losing.
Tell me about it.
Larry Raglan, 2007. It's, I better have some of that just to be safe. Yeah.
I got you, bro.
Thanks, brother. Cheers to fucking losing. I love it. Larry Raglan was my El Maestro. Blessed to say I get to see him in 2 days. I'm fucking super grateful that I get to see him. He is a savage. This motherfucker eats broken glass for breakfast. He's an incredible athlete. He's 80 years old. For his 80th birthday, he did 80 push-ups.
Wow.
Not like, I'm like, and I talked to him the other day, I'm like, okay, like 15 is said, like, you know.
Like on your knees, no. Grandpa style.
He's like, no, you know.
Proper.
The whole one set.
Wow.
80 push-ups. And he was like prepping me for this. He was like, to be honest with you, BJ, they weren't really nice. Like, you wouldn't be proud. But I was like, well, how many sets you do? He's like, 1. 80 push-ups in a row for an 80-year-old guy.
43 and...
Oh my God.
That's a test.
Yeah, that's a test. Like for me personally, I like to think I'm pretty strong. You know, I've done jiu-jitsu for 15 years as you have.
Yeah.
Like for me to do 80 push-ups, it's not happening.
Yeah.
It's not happening. Like my max would be 50 right now. Mind you, I haven't done bench press in you know, a long time. It's been like 6 years since I tried to be like really big and strong, but I'm not doing 80 push-ups. And when I could bench press a lot of weight, I was 270 pounds, you know, and there were some things at play that helped me with that a little bit, but he's a savage, and he was my nickname that he gave was El Maestro, because he was my teacher. Like, I was a guy that could not parallel park. I'm fucking awful. That's why I don't believe in talent, because I was not talented. Like, you know, I drove how I thought I should drive, and I sucked, to be quite honest with you. I was awful. And he kind of took me under his wing in 2003. And I trained with him. I pre-ran with him for several years. And he went from being like, yo, this truck fucking sucks. It's always crooked. It's like, it's always floppy coming out of the corners and stuff like that. That was his way of nicely saying, you're awful.
Yeah, you suck.
You suck. Like, why are you wasting so much time spinning the tires and throwing rocks everywhere?
Yeah.
None of that matters. You want to throw rocks and like break windows and stuff like that, of like spectator vehicles and stuff like that, do it on the entry. Yeah. Don't do it on the exit, because you're wasting time. So, he went from being like, I don't like this pre-runner at all. Is tier 1 pre-runner, you know, at the time. It still is pretty dope. But, you know, from him going from that to being like, don't you fucking dare let off that throttle. And it's like a right 5, and I'm pitched, and there's fucking trees both sides. Like, don't do it. Do not do that.
It gives you a new level of respect for like what Ken did, right?
Oh,
doing 100 miles an hour through a fucking forest when your car is sideways.
Yeah,
that rally shit is fucking wild.
Trees are like, for the way I see it, and I don't know how you see it, but like when I get in the like areas that I don't know it's one thing if you know it really well, like you can be like a stud and do sexy stuff, but if it's an area that you don't know really well, those look like demons.
Oh, yeah.
Because I know they're not moving.
Yeah, it's terrifying.
If you hit them, then it's not like I could shoot through.
You don't
like
run them over.
Yeah, you don't run them.
Period.
When you blow a corner and there's a bush that's 20 feet tall, you're blowing right through that like it's made of paper mache. Like, it's not a problem at all. A tree, you're stopping.
Done.
You're going from 82 miles an hour to 0 in 14 inches.
Yeah.
You know, so he went from like, you know, like, take it easy. Like, you don't need to impress me. I was 23 years old. You don't need to impress me, whatever. To like, don't do that. Do not close the butterflies. Like, you got this. I have confidence in you. So in 2007, I had a race called the Baja 500 where I had made it to the front. I was first truck on the road. And I was leading the race. And I was not by any stretch of the imagination talented, or as it was be defined as talented or exceptional as it relates to that, a top tier driver. I wasn't on the level of Rob McCacker or any of these legends,
right,
you know, that I idolized, but I was leading the race, and Larry was second car on the road, and he was like making time. He had 250 miles to make that 50 seconds, 49 seconds to be exact, and I had 16 miles to go, and the last 16 miles of the Baja 500. The road is shaped like a dome. So you can imagine the grip level you get if you get off a little bit. If it's a right-hand corner and you can get the tire in here, you get a lot more grip level.
Or you go the other way and you're fucked.
Or you go the other way and you're completely screwed, right? So I'm like 16 miles to go, 11 seconds corrected time. I have the lead on legend Larry Ragland. His list of accomplishments is long and distinguished, right? So I'm like, oh my God, like, you know, like I got a chance to beat like my hero.
Yeah.
I can rip the cape off of Superman if I just keep it together. So I'm last 16 miles. I'm doing it really well. I'm driving outside of my comfort zone. We're right in that 104 percentile. Like, you know, let's try and win the Baja 1000 regardless of the cost, physically or anywhere else. And I get to a left 3, and I get to a motorcycle that I've been chasing down for like a mile. And again, I'm not trying to like ball this guy up. I'm really focusing on getting around him. And you're not allowed to pre-run out. You're not allowed to pre-run in. But you can pre-run out. So when you go in at race speed, as you know, it's like trying to remember the alphabet backwards as fast as you can.
Right.
So is downhill. It went from like going out, it was like modulate throttle so you don't burn the tires up, left 3, right 3, hug corner or hug rut here, hug irrigation duct, and you know, try and modulate the throttle so you're not burning the tires up because you don't have a fuel pit for 100 miles. And to like be really careful, this is second gear. This is very slippery surface. It's domed, and whatever rut grip that you have in there is for the track width of a 1989 Corolla. You know, so you can't get like grip. It's
not 110 inches like a trophy truck.
No, it's not like super, super wide. It's like really, really thin. So you get grip off of one side or the other, kinda, but they're not that deep. And after I passed the motorcycle, I was so focused on like, don't fucking kill this guy, don't get him balled up in the rear tire or whatever, that I failed to acknowledge what was there, which was not a threat going out, but it was a threat going in. And the threat going in, instead of a left 4 modulate throttle to 3/4 to full throttle to get this thing on its hind legs and leave really hard, was to like, you know, 10-15% throttle. It's a left 2 instead of a right 4. You know, and for those that are listening, right 4 is higher speed.
People
left
are like, what the
2
fuck are you
is
talking
like, yeah,
about?
they're like, what the fuck am I talking about?
This is the difference between like really
the
fast
lower the
and
number,
really slow.
Yeah, the lower the number, the slower you have to go.
Right.
Left 1 is basically a U-turn. Right 6 is you don't have to let off the throttle, but you have to turn right a little bit. So going out, it was right 4, which is high speed, a little bit right. Going in, it was left 2. Braking distances drastically increased because the surface is very slippery because it's like pavement with dust on it. And, it's a steeper angle because you're going downhill and your braking distance is dramatically increased.
You can tell this is your best memory and your favorite one because of the intricacies of the details.
And, if I hadn't done it right, there would have been body parts everywhere. Because there was 9 people total standing on top of this rock that had a 30-degree incline off of the side of the corner, which I could have hit and made it work, but I would have killed a bunch of people. So I was like, I'd rather destroy this truck than kill those people. That'd be probably frowned upon. So I'm like trying to pitch it, trying to shave speed off after I realized the mistake that I had made. And the irrigation ditches on the side were 2.5 feet deep. So it's going to flip the truck over regardless. If you go over there, even like this, it's going to have a lot of wheel rate and flip the truck over. I went over it like this. I was trying to spin the truck out to try and decelerate it to an extent because all of the mass as relates to, not the mass, but all of the energy was on the hind legs when you spin it around like that. I could have saved it if I had a little bit more room, but I went through that 2-foot square wall at like 40 miles an hour, wide open throttle in second gear, and I ended up rolling it through a fence down a hill off a cliff. And I ran up like Sprinter style, stole a Jeep Cherokee that had the keys in it and fucking drove it down. So I didn't even ask for permission. I was just like, drove it down, ripped my tow strap off the back of the truck because it was on the door, towed it back over. They changed the rear tire. Eric Dickerson, actually was my co-writer at the time. He changed the rear tire. I drove the truck back up, past the guy the keys because obviously had showed up at that time.
Hey, here's
somebody
your car,
stole his
car
truck.
back, buddy.
Yes.
By the way, I'll send you a case of fucking beer when I get home.
$20, yeah. And got back on the road, and Larry drove right past me, but he wasn't on time. He had made a critical error coming in. He had, mistakenly went Y left when he should have done Y right. Because it's very complex coming in, right? So I would have won. Even if I would have been like texting my friends while driving, I would have won because he was down 45 seconds.
Right.
Unfortunately, being rolled over, I was down about 3.25 minutes. So I got it back on its legs and drove back up the hill through the fence again. And I ended up, I was leading the whole race. I was leading for 5 hours. And at the time, I wasn't somebody that people recognize as one of the best. I was a bum.
Yeah.
And I got a lot of street cred for leading that entire race, even though I finished third. I ended up finishing third. Larry won that particular race. And we were pre-run partners. So as soon as I got to the finish line, and Robbie Gordon beat me on corrected time by like 15 or 16 seconds. But as soon as I got to the finish line, Larry sprinted up to the bumper of my truck, climbed up the bumper, climbed up the hood, didn't care about the intake manifold or anything like that. He's like, what did I fucking tell you? You had me dialed. I made a mistake going in that you didn't make because I saw your fingerprint on that particular avenue where I should have gone Y right 3 instead I got left 4. And that's my favorite memory, bar none. Like winning 2 Baja 1000s in a row, standing on a truck, spraying everybody with champagne. It does not hold a candle to losing to Larry Ragland. That was the best moment in my motorsports career, and I look forward to having good moments like that, but I am doubtful that moments like that will ever occur again in my motorsports career, because he was my teacher.
Yeah.
And I got the opportunity to slit Superman's throat, metaphorically.
You could have.
I could have.
Right.
And, but I still got the same amount of respect from the public for being able to hold him off for that long, because he's a legend. Like I said, his list of accomplishments are long and distinguished. He's the man.
Dude, what's your, well, at some point in time, I mean, in that same vein, is like, you hope to be that guy for somebody else. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, whether it's your kid, whether it's somebody else, it's like, that's kind of the end goal. You know what I'm saying? Like, have somebody chase you the way that you chased him. Have somebody have the same story 10 years from now going, BJ's coming at me, and he ends up fucking it up, and then I'm over here. You know what I'm saying? But dude, I mean,
I got 15 years because Larry was 65 at that time.
Yeah, you got a little bit of time.
But yeah, I don't really have somebody that I would mentor in the manner that Larry meant, because I had to earn my way in. Larry didn't like me. Plain and simple, he was like, "This is a fucking brat that has a privately funded motorsports program, and he thinks he's going to be the shit and whatnot." And I had to really show him that I was very, very humble and willing to understand and respect everything that he said and listen to everything that he said in order for him to share any kind of information with me at all.
I think very few people understand that you could have all the money in the world, you could have the dopest truck, you could have the dopest team, you still got to be able to fucking drive. You still have to be able to fucking drive. And anybody that has been in Mexico or anywhere, I mean, Mint, Laughlin, name the race, you have to be able to fucking drive. And if you can drive, like, it's a totally different ballgame. So it's like, you can have all the money, you can have the dopest truck on planet Earth and still get your dick knocked in the dirt. You've got to be able to fucking drive.
With 65 BPM.
Yeah.
You have to be able to operate at that level.
Yeah.
As calm as we are right now. I know like thousands and thousands of people are going to be, tens of thousands of people are going to be able to see that. I have more heightened respiration, blood pressure, and heart rate right now than I would if I'm doing 136 miles an hour at night.
Isn't it wild how that works?
Yeah.
How do you think racing, because I know for me last year, I started racing that Aston Martin, like on the track.
Yeah, I fucking love that. Dude, when I saw you getting in the fucking car like that, bro, I was so proud and so happy for you.
It was so much fun because it started with my friend Jason coming down and racing Baja with me. So he was racing this Super Trofeo, this Lamborghini Super Trofeo, and I invited him. I said, "Hey, come drive a leg of Baja with me." We're 600 miles in. This was, I don't remember, it was a point-to-point, which I can't stand because if you break down at 600 miles, you have to drive Highway 1 back, which...
But it's fast.
It's fast, but if you don't make it and you break down, it's the worst experience of your fucking life. Because Highway 1 is literally this wide and you're trying to pull a trailer this wide.
No, your tail between your legs for 600 miles.
It sucks ass. It sucks ass. Anyways, he came down. We ended up breaking down before we got in the truck. Came home. I'm like, "Hey, how do you do the street thing, the whole thing?" I bought this Acura Integra, raced with him. I ended up buying that Aston Martin race last year. And dude, it is without question one of the most humbling yet exhilarating things to be able to be at the starting line, packing up to start these races with dudes that have been racing for 20 years, and you're the new guy. Brand new, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. You're trying to freaking get in there, you're trying to race. But it's the most exciting, exhilarating thing to be in that space where it's like, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm here.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So to be able to have those, the mentors and the coaches and the people ahead of you, without question, I've got multiple guys that help me kind of that same way. But what would you say, I'm really curious, what would you say your biggest fear is? What's your biggest fear?
I've already had it happen. Let's turn this to a dark moment.
Are we going to go there? Yeah, what's your biggest fear?
For this one? In 2002, I passed 27 cars in Class 1, and I think I was third on the road. I was in a spot where I could dominate in Class 1 at this particular race. It was one of my first Mexico races. I think I had like three. Oh, I had two by then. I passed 26 or 27 cars in Class 1. I think we had 33 in the pack, or 32, something like that. But I was top 5, top 3. And I came into pit. This is a fucking great story. This is 2003, and I had, instead of the dry brake system, we were like, done in like 27 seconds. I had dump cans, right, that had to be filled from both sides to accelerate the fueling time in a manner that I could leave in 30 seconds. And I don't know how much fuel I was going to be taking at the time, but I think it was 40 gallons. I had a Scat V4. It made about 520 horsepower. It wasn't like super gnarly. Like now I make 1,100 and 900 foot-pounds. But for that particular car that weighed 3,100 pounds, that fucking thing left.
That's insane.
It was gnarly, you know. Now they have cars that weigh 3,100 pounds that make 700 horsepower. Back in the day, it was a good motor and powertrain package. And I was the first one to have a Ford 9-inch rear end that had, for those that are listening, it was positive traction. So no matter what, an act of God would have to be present in order for the right rear tire to out-accelerate the left rear tire. So it was always positive traction. Most buggies, when you put a little bit of weight, you're going in the left corner, you're leaning on the throttle, open the butterflies. This tire will outspin this tire. The same for going right corner. So I came into the pit. My dad was going to ride the second half. He was going to navigate the second half. Tori knows where this is cool. Going. She's laughing right now. So, because I have pictures of this at my office. But when you fuel that system, we don't have a good dry brake system. We were, budget race team at the time. When you fuel that system, they have an overflow system or a vent system, actually, that is kind of acts like a beer bong, so to say, where it accelerates the flow of liquid into the system. Open up the top,
sucks it down.
Yeah, it just dumps right in.
Again, if you don't understand what we're talking about, just Google it.
Just Google it.
It's all there.
But, you want to get the fuel in as fast as you can, and then you could leave without consuming 5 minutes. You want to consume, right now, in today's world, you want to consume about 28 seconds. Tires and fuel, 28 seconds. That's what it takes me. But back then, it was like a minute. So it was a minute to get this fuel in. It was 39 gallons or some of that nature. And when they tilted the fuel cans up, my Parker pumper that pumps fresh air into my helmet, it's off the back of the system, which you've been experienced to as well. It has a filtration system. It runs off electric motor. Electric motors run off electricity that runs off a spark. So the overflow or the vent system still had fuel in it. And on my side, it spilled that fuel into the engine compartment because it was a mid-engine car. And it also spilled it directly into the Parker pumper, which is my fresh air system. So the electric motor that runs that system, that arcs from, it runs off of, for those that don't know, it runs off magnets, like electromagnetic signal that accelerate that motor, much like a Tesla drives. So that arc ignited the fuel that spilled into the system. And it spilled like maybe a half gallon into that system. But when they panicked, and I don't blame them for panicking, because I would have fucking panicked too, because fire is very hot, especially if it's hot outside. So they pulled both systems out of both sides, and it spilled about 6 gallons of 118 leaded octane race fuel into the engine compartment. Which is very, very, very
It's very flammable.
We like that because we run off of controlled explosions, and we want the explosions to be as powerful as possible, so that we can make a lot of horsepower.
In the actual motor controlled versus
inside
outside
the
of the
cylinder
truck.
head. Exactly. So it spilled 6 or 7 gallons into the car when they pulled out and they panicked. And that got very hot for a very short period of time. I was engulfed in flames, and my dad was just about to get in. And the guy that was riding with me, navigating for me, it was halfway through the race. He jumped through the window. My dad was like, "Fuck, this shit's on fire." And I was disappointed. I was like, "Fuck, dude, I'm going to burn to death in front of my dad." I wasn't even scared. I was like, "Oh my God, this motherfucker has to see this shit." Like, seriously? And this guy loves me, as much of an asshole as I am. This guy thinks I'm pretty cool, one of the few people on the planet at the time. But, I'm engulfed in flames, and all of this bullshit, rubber, plastic, fuel, really high quality fuel, is about $23 a gallon at the time.
Race fuel.
Is being rammed into my helmet because the origin of the fire was in the Parker pumper system. So it was ramming it into my helmet. And just like, this, we're both familiar with this, being choked unconscious, it had an effect on me. And I got the window net down, I got my belts unbuckled, and then I lost color and everything. And then there was some cigarette burns in the film that was projecting from my eyeballs to my brain to interpret the environment. And I very slowly but surely was able to almost get settled to where I can get out of the vehicle, get out of the Class 1 car, to where it just went out. I woke up and my dad was out of breath. He stuck his hands that didn't have fire retardant gloves through the fire, which had engulfed the entire vehicle, and through my armpits, pulled me out. And to be fair, no disrespect implied or intended, but this guy was in no shape to lift a 260-pound motherfucker out of the car, especially a car that didn't have budget to get doors on it. Yeah. Of course, no race cars have doors. And he pulled me out. The fuel cell the fuel tank that was filling the fuel cell, is 15 gallons, 16 gallons, was on fire 3 feet away from us. But I remember in that moment, I wasn't afraid of dying. I was afraid of dying in front of my dad. Because I kind of know what that looks like. It's not pretty. It's not like, you're dead. No, it's the smell.
Yeah.
The smell. And looking at somebody that you produced over the course of 23 years, that you were, at the time, he was proud of me, which I wasn't proud of myself because I could have made better decisions throughout life, but he was very proud of me, loved me very much. He still does to this day. And for him to, that's all I was concerned about. I don't mind dying, but I don't want to fucking burn to death in front of my dad.
Of my old man, yeah.
That's the only thing I cared about.
Yeah.
I didn't even care about dying at all. I don't want to fucking die in front of my dad. And he's fucking my hero. He rescued me. Yeah. One of many people that he saved. I've seen him fucking hop like Superman to save a girl from being blended up by a 35,000-pound yacht, and a wide variety of different situations where he saved somebody. But he saved my life, and he pulled me out of the fire, exerted all of his energy. He was out. And I came to, and I was like, what the fuck are you doing here? This place is on fire. I picked him up after he picked me up and dragged him to the side. And I was like, okay, what was that?
Yeah.
What was that? Because you've been choked unconscious before.
Oh, yeah.
I've been choked unconscious before.
You come back and you're like, what the fuck just happened?
Yeah, fucking.
Even though you're sitting here.
5 or 6 seconds, it erases from your life.
Right.
You never know what happened in that 5 or 6 seconds.
Yeah.
So, I didn't know either. I just knew that I was in the car, it caught fire, and then I was out of the car. So I picked him up and I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah. Is that the first time that you'd raced with him, or had you raced with him before that?
I've raced with him before that.
Yeah.
I've raced with him before that, and he wasn't too keen on racing with me, so I kind of pressured him into the car.
Did he race at all, or did you just get into it just because you got into it when you were a kid? Or did he race?
He didn't start racing. He started racing because of me. So after that, I had already been racing for 7 years. He had gotten into Class 1, and which is unlimited everything. So open wheel, unlimited buggy, big as motors as you want, most travel as you want. Trucks ended up being a lot faster than that because they're aerodynamically more advantageous than a Class 1 car. And there was more of them, and there was more technology, more tuning, and more budget involved in getting that to perform really well. There wasn't very many Class 1 cars that had a solid rear axle, which is advantageous as it relates to traction. Yeah. To getting a bite of that bump that's 3 feet deep that you only see every 20 yards when you're at speed. Yeah. But he raced for quite a bit of time. I was in a coma down here.
That's cool.
But he raced for 4 or 5 years, and then he ended up having a stroke in 2012. That's another really good story. Should we get into
racing? Yeah. Yeah. Is Jaden racing? Is your son? Is he dig racing? How old is he?
He has not raced yet. He's 14, a little over 14.
Does he have the racing bug?
He kind of does.
Yeah.
But he's into stuff for about 3 months at a time. So I want to make sure he's like burned into it
Yeah.
to a certain extent, to where he's like, for me, what really gravitated me towards this specific motorsports is that it was so different than any other form of motorsports. Like I drove Robbie Gordon's Road Atlanta car, and it went 115 miles an hour in first gear and went 182 miles an hour down the backstretch and left 6. Actually, it would be like a left 18, and it doesn't impress me as much as off-road racing because that thing accelerates well, it turns really well, everything's fucking dope. But, as it relates to off-road racing or desert racing specifically, it's not going to go through 4-foot bumps at 118 miles an hour. I think that's really special that no other form of motorsports possesses, is the ability to absorb that kinetic energy.
Sure. And the lessons too, the lessons you learn in racing that transcend into
100%,
the real world.
100%.
Like I found this last year racing on the track, a really interesting, I don't want to even call it a phenomenon, but reality where, you blow a corner, you miss a corner, and on the track, I mean, I'm talking about like I was braking 10 feet too late, or I was half a car width outside my line or whatever. It's so finite. It's so delicate. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But what's interesting is like me and you being a high performer and wanting the best and the excellence and the whole thing.
Yeah, we're obsessed.
When you blow a corner, you literally have 2 to 3 seconds before the next corner.
2 to 3 tenths.
The
next corner.
Before the next corner.
Yeah.
And so while you're sitting there kicking the shit out of yourself, going, "Fuck, I broke. It was too late, or inside, or I broke this corner." You have another corner that's coming up, and it's like you literally what racing, especially on the track, this last year taught me is like you have such a finite amount of time before the next corner, and then the next corner, corner, that you literally have to learn the lesson, process next corner. And
that's 100 years in the past.
And in seconds. So it's like we translate that out of racing. It's like, oh, I beat myself up because I did this yesterday or last year or 2 years ago. I made this stupid mistake and I'm still kicking the shit out of myself for it. In racing, like you fuck a corner up, done. Lesson learned. You
pay for the next 3 corners.
Exactly. Or you process it, learn, I'm good. Next corner, I'm like fully in it. I'm there. You know what I mean? I found that racing has, without question, helped me navigate situations and problems significantly faster. You don't hang on to shit as long. You can't. Because if you're hanging on to, I blew that corner, I suck, this is terrible, I'm going to lose this race, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 corners have gone by, and now you've blown the whole fucking race.
Exactly.
But you have to literally process in a moment. Lesson learned. Next time, I'm coming in here. This is where I'm at. I'm at this brake marker versus this brake marker. Good. Boom, next corner. Like, how has racing helped you in just life, being a dad, being a patriarch, being a leader? How has it helped you?
Well, I told Kyle's my navigator. He's the best navigator I've ever had because he's listened to everything I've had to say. Kyle Kraft, he's like a brother to me because he's only had to listen to things one time instead of like having to tell people that have adrenal response in a chaotic environment where you're in the paint shaker. It's fucking mayhem where you have to tell them multiple times. And that's acceptable because heart rate's 140, 150, and you have to like tell people certain things multiple times in order for them to gravitate and get like some adhesiveness of the lesson you're trying to teach. Kyle, he has the ability to respond to the lessons I've teach very early on in our relationship. Was 5 or 6 years ago. And he's been really good about that. But, as it relates to the lessons that teach motorsports, to a certain extent, there has been a division of my experience in that has saved my life.
Yeah.
And, most people don't know, this is no news to anybody. This, I have been shot at.
I was going to say, recently you just had a pretty wild, traumatic, biblical experience that most human beings will never have.
Yeah.
Where that same neurological processing, going to my training, going to that calm space in that corner when you're like, there's a rock. You know what I mean? Same kind of translation.
How do we get scared
recently.
later? Like get scared later. That's so that delaying that response. For those of you that don't know, I'm not sure there's many people that don't know because I've talked about it to try and help others that have been in that relationship, that experience, and as well as people that carry, all the time.
Talk about that for a second. I mean, I know you're comfortable talking about it.
Oh,
but
100%.
Share that experience because it's one that anybody that's followed BJ or knows BJ knows the experience that you had. But I mean, it was fairly. When was it?
Do we have any tissues?
2 years ago. We got tissues. We can do a paper
Oh
towel.
my God.
Paper towel or whatever. That was what 2. It wasn't even 2 years ago, was it?
It was 456 days ago.
So
I'm just kidding.
Just over a year.
I don't know the days, but
just over a year.
It was just a little over 2 years ago, but yeah. There are certain people that don't know, but I was in a gunfight a little over 2 years ago. There was an individual that, had no shade, this person had challenges that we've all had, and he was chemically compromised, and I've had prescriptions before for benzo. What do they call it? What's the scientific name of like a Xanax, like a benzoproxenate or something?
I don't know. I'm not that smart.
Whatever. But, I took Xanax for fucking 60 days to help me sleep. The smallest dose that you can take, right? And then I ran out. I noticed that I did not feel right for the 61st day, right? It was supposed to help me sleep. My doctor gave it to me. And, I was like, fuck, no, I don't feel right, like in the absence of something that has been, repetitive in the last 60 days. I didn't sleep for 12 days. And I was like, it went from like...
This was after the...
Oh, yeah. This was
experience.
after the event. I was like, you know what? I'm having trouble sleeping. He gave me Xanax. You know? And he said 2.5, which is the smallest dose you can take. But I had he didn't prescribe me very much. He was like, when you have trouble sleeping, break off this much,
right,
and this will help you. So I took it for 12 or 14 days. I don't remember, but I like the 14th or 15th day, I didn't have it. I'm like, fuck, I feel off. Like, I don't know that I want to take this. I know a lot of people. I researched it. There's like 40% in the United States that have a prescription for this, whether they take it or not.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't like how I feel today. Being that I can get another prescription, but I don't know that I want it because I feel a little bit off today. So you have static baseline of how you feel. And I was a little bit above that. I didn't sleep for 13 days. I slept for like 35 minutes a day for 13 days. I'm like, I'm never fucking touching that shit again. And it went from being like, yo, the world is like chaos and everything sucks, to being like, okay, I can take 2.5 of this medication, which some people take a lot more than that. But I was like, I'm just going to like break a little piece off of that. And it'll help me go to sleep. I'll take it at 8:30 at night, and by 10:30 I'll go to sleep. I'll go to sleep for 6 or 7 hours, and I'll be good for the next day. Well,
and this was after the...
This was after the gunfight. Yeah, I was prescribed this after the gunfight, and I'll get into the gunfight for those of the listening. They're like, oh, you were in a gunfight?
Yeah, we go from racing and driving fucking race cars to, I shot a guy one time.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I mean, what I find fascinating is not only that experience, but like, there's a lot of parallels in the things that we do.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And I found that there are significant parallels in my life as there are in racing. And racing has taught me a lot. And I know that you're a big gun guy, which I wish that we had video of the time that you and I were in Las Vegas. And I have to toot my horn for a second.
I appreciate it.
BJ and I were, and do you know the story? Were you there? Tori, were you there? When we were at Was it SHOT Show? It was a SHOT Show.
I think it was SHOT. Yeah.
I have to just throw my little plug in here because there was one time that
We're going next week, right?
I was a better shot than BJ. We're at this influencer
I must have been drunk.
Yeah, it was an influencer event. Anyways, long story short. Long story short, we were at this shooting event. They hand us these stock Glock 19s. I beat BJ for about 2 or 3 shots, and then he's like, "Fuck you," and he pulls out his, and they're like, "Well, you can't use modified." Da da da. Anyways, long story short.
Yeah, they made me fire a stock 17, right?
And I think I might have been a little bit better, but
you were. Don't cheat yourself.
Moral of the story.
You fucking burn me down.
Moral of the story. Big gun guy, and having that experience 2 years ago. Not something that you planned on. Not something that was on the to-do list. But I know that in our conversations, having the race experience, the adrenaline, the training, so on and so forth, without question, I think you would say that it served you in the experience where you realistically got into a gunfight with somebody in a parking lot.
Yeah, I would prefer to get into shooting because shooting is like somebody has a baseball bat, a knife, or a copy of Hillary's book. They're trying to feed it to you. And then you're like lethal force.
Right.
You're able to, save your life or somebody else's from an overwhelming tactical advantage. I didn't have that advantage at the time. Somebody was shooting at me.
Yeah.
So that was, back to what you were saying about racing and how that may have helped me in some way, shape, or form. I have been like, this shit is gnarly, and I better make the right decision or it's going to go bad. I'm going to be upside down and on fire. So I've had a fuck ton of tactical training. Can I say that? We can cuss.
100%.
So I've had so much tactical training, right? But there's certain things that you won't get in a class that you pay $350 for.
Right.
And that is, I'm going to die if I don't make the right decision, or I'm going to get significantly hurt if I don't make the right decision. And there's so many times in motorsports where I've been like blown a corner and been like, man, I should have hit the brakes about 170 yards ago.
Right.
But I didn't. I'm not going to make this corner. If Jesus was driving, he would not make this corner.
Jesus took the wheel and he blew the corner a long time
ago.
Yeah,
he would have hit the brakes 170 yards ago.
Yeah.
But I've been like, okay, I'm not going to make this. It's not physically possible for me to make this corner. Like there's a cliff, there's a tree, there's a bush, there's whatever. What can I hit that's softest? And let's get scared after you solve the problem, right? So that definitely helped me. And I've been, and I think I talked about this with you before, as it relates to my ability and as it relates to being a driver and being a precision driver and one of the best. It's not from trying to learn how to be the best drivers. It's from learning how to unfuck myself.
Yeah.
Repetitively over the course of 2 decades, and getting where I've made a mistake, I've been able to get back on course in 8 to 10 seconds, and then put that in the past, compartmentalize that, and think about that after the race is over and how I could have done better in that particular situation, which is there's usually one of those situations every 2 seconds where I've been like, oh man, a big mistake. Let's get scared later. Let's solve the problem. What can I hit that's softest that will have the least amount of repercussions? And, I've hit people before.
So on that,
which saved their life.
Yeah.
Let me just throw that out there.
on the situation in Vegas, the shooting.
I did not have accelerated heart rate, blood pressure. I know we talked about that a little bit. We started about that a little bit before we hopped on.
Yeah, we talked about that before the podcast, but share that with us.
Thanks to definitely the training that I've had, which I highly recommend to anybody that has a concealed carry permit and a CCP, is training. But thanks to the training I have and thanks to motorsports and my experiences within motorsports, I was able to compartmentalize that stuff and get scared later solve the problem. This problem needs a bunch of holes in it. Let's figure out this problem so that she doesn't get killed. I don't get killed. So I had somebody, I can go into the long version, right? Because we got a minute, right?
Sure.
We've only been
however
here,
you want.
We've only been here for like 15 minutes, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I had kind of a rough night. I got in an argument with my father, which we never do. And I wrote him a letter that he still to this day has never seen. But it was about his wife, which is my stepmom, which is 13 years younger than me. I think if I do the math right. She's a wonderful lady. She's a lot of fun. She's Polish, and she's very, very funny. She's great for my dad, and she's really, really helped my father. He has a lot of fun with her, but we've had our differences in the past. I've told her to go fuck herself a couple times, which I regret, but I'm really emotional. That's my father, and I want to be involved in certain decisions. But she said that there's no guns allowed at a birthday party, right? I'm getting really deep because I've been drinking. So, more or less, the end of the letter that was 3 hours long was like, you want me at the birthday party? I'm the most ugly motherfucker you've ever met in your life. Because of love. Not because of anything else. Because I cannot process people that would have some type of event that would limit my time with them.
Right.
So I've become really, really fucking fast. At one point in time, I was one of the fastest guys in the country. And the residual of that is that I'm, top 100 fastest guys in the country from my primary as a civilian in the country.
Dude, how competitive do you and Tori get? Like, that's the question that I have.
I fucking smoke her. And we're really
Is
close
this
to
true?
the microphone, right? I smoke her.
She's sitting... She's going back and forth, okay? 50-50, 60-40.
I kill her within within 1 yard, 5 yards, 7 yards, and you can interject anytime you see fit. 1, 5, 7, 10. If it's
so you're
one
a
objective.
practitioner. You're somebody who practices and without question training in
I
the
throw a
firearms
lot of lead downrange.
Got
But
it.
more importantly, I unload my handgun and I do a lot of dry practice. So as it relates to Tori and I, like from 1, 5, 7, sometimes within 10 yards, I fucking burn her down. I'm so much quicker than her. As soon as you add an objective, it's like, damn, that's tight. That's really tight. But you add another objective,
so
she
under
kills me.
pressure, you're the boss, basically.
Oh, she kills me. She's got 56
world titles, world
something
championships.
of that nature. She's she's the best.
Yeah.
She's the youngest shooting sports champion in history, male or female. She's the best, and when it gets behind a gun, she's bolted to it. She is out of all of and I got to brag you up for a little bit, sweetie. Out of all of the people that I have trained with, some of them have been in not a couple of gunfights, like 100. When you have a type 1 malfunction, which means the primer or the striker or the hammer strikes the back of the projectile and it does not have an ignition, which means the gun does not go off. She's the only person I've seen in all my years of training which doesn't anticipate recoil impulse. So click. Instead of everybody else, including me and everybody else I've seen, goes click,
Yep.
and they have a recoil flinch response. She doesn't do that. I'll never forget. I'm going to tell this story. This is a good story. I'm so glad that thousands of people are going to see this. So I'm pre-running a race, and I'm like, okay, I zero my handgun, and I'm zeroing it at 50 yards. That's point aim, point impact, with everything within 1 yard, good enough. And I get it zeroed, and I'm trying to hit something that's the size of a thigh, like a log, and it's 500 yards. It ended up being 483 yards. And Kyle's with me. He's like my fucking brother. He's my, navigator. I'm like, show Kyle, like how you shoot and whatnot. She's like, no, I don't want to fuck with it. Let's just get on. Let's get our work done. I'm like, no, you don't understand. This is 124 plus Pure Gold dot. It's bonded bullets, very, very accurate. I've already gone through 4 magazines trying to hit this thing. It's 483 yards away. Let's see how close you can get. She puts dot on the objective, cranks a round off, and does an adjustment as it relates to elevation and windage. And she hits it second try. Well, first try, really, because she wasn't really trying the second try, or the first try. She hits it the second try. She's like, all right, let's get in the car and let's fucking go. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. That's amazing. Like, I've gone through 4 magazines trying to hit this with the best performing projectile. And you know as well as I did, because you know about guns. By the time a 9mm projectile has hit 100 yards, it's out of breath.
Yeah. And
we're trying to go 483 yards, right? So this projectile is going through. And she hits it, first try. She's like, all right, let's go. Let's get back to work. So she's helped me substantially as it relates to my progression in my training as it relates to that particular event. But to get back to the event, I didn't really have post-traumatic stress disorder as it relates to that event. Somebody was trying to gain access to her. They never asked for money. They never asked for anything that we had. They just started shooting at her, and we started shooting at the same time. It was a gunfight. I engaged him 10 times, fired 10 times at him. He engaged me. 8 out of 9 projectiles that he had possessed in that particular platform. Shot at her twice, shot at me 6 times. I ended up getting several rounds in him and ended up being able to shut him off by a mandible impacted projectile that shut him off. And this is not like he's a bad guy, right? He was into some stuff. He was gnarly like us, but he was into some stuff that was, might have been frowned upon or illegal, or a combination of the both. He's a good father. I have to throw this out there anytime I get a public forum, because I'm not throwing shade. Good father. He had a woman that loved him. And, he just had a challenging point in life, which we all do, right? But yeah, he started a gunfight, unfortunately, with a person that has been studying gunfight for 15 years. And first one to die loses, right? And obviously, I'm going to die 300 years from now, hopefully. But I ended up winning that sparring match, and I did a deep dive into ballistic performance, giving the data that I collected from that particular engagement, which was very difficult. What was most difficult for me, because I'm a public figure, what everybody was saying about me. Like, everybody had their specific
opinions and
things that they suspected happened. Like, I was trying to get in a gunfight for clout. Let me tell you firsthand, like, I have killed somebody. It's not fun. I have been in a gunfight that I have won. It's not fun. It fucking sucks. It's awful. It's terrible. It's awful. But she still has blood pressure, heart rate, respiration rate. So that was the end goal of that particular engagement.
What was your biggest takeaway from that?
My biggest takeaway.
You've raced the biggest races in the world. You've won the biggest race in the world. You've competed against the best in the world. But like, in that specific experience, like, knowing the severity of the outcome, like, what was your biggest takeaway?
I have to carry a projectile that exceeds 1,180 feet per second. I should be carrying a platform that is as close to M134 Gatling machine gun that fires 113 rounds per second that I can. And I've gone back and forth as it relates to the performance between a Glock 34 and a Staccato XC or XL. The one thing that I've learned about ballistic performance, and I have researched, you wouldn't believe what the neighbors don't hear after 1 a.m. You would not believe it. But what I have researched in my time as a ballistician, an amateur ballistician, is that anything over 1,180 feet per second would provide a favorable response. It would have contacted tissue. And he was 14 yards away. It takes 42 thousandths of a second for my projectile to leave my bore and reach 14 yards. In that particular event, he was making 8.1 to 8.2 inches in that time frame. I suspect he has 4 or 5 holes in the back of his sweater, although I have not looked at that data yet. But I am in the process of producing and manufacturing and partnering with a specific company that may make a projectile and an ammunition blend as it relates to powder charge and performance, not just in what leaves the bore, but what would be more advantageous for a human being of any skill set, to where in my particular scenario that would yield desirable effects, which has been a 2.5 year long process as it relates to that research that I've been really dialed into for quite a long time. Like I said, the neighbors are fucking deaf.
How many people like, threw go ahead, yeah, it's all you. How many people threw some serious shade on that?
Oh, there was a lot.
Experience.
You know,
I remember the experience. I remember seeing a lot of the comments, a lot of the idea was, what was that like for you? Like after that, I mean, being a public figure. I mean, it's such a weird thing. Like just having a lot of eyeballs on you. Call it what you will. But a lot of times it's difficult. A lot of times there's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of fear. There's a lot of insecurity. You know what I mean around that. But like, what was that like for you?
It was very difficult. Like in my mind, I turned to a ballistician very quickly, and a mathematician as it relates to kinetic energy transfer and wound production. Took me about 6 months, right, to figure a lot of stuff out. But as it relates to post-traumatic stress disorder from somebody trying to murder you or murder your girlfriend and spread her memories all over your front windshield of your very expensive car, like that was pretty gnarly. But what was really difficult was difficult for me, because in my mind I had a different perspective of how that happened, what happened in that particular event, was the people that assumed different things. Like I was trying to get in a gunfight to, get clout or something of that nature. Believe me, you don't want to get in a gunfight. It's not fun at all. It fucking sucks whether you win or lose. I had people like that were guessing like I was in some sort of drug deal that went bad, and like cocaine, and like I love Oreo cookie sundaes and Oreo cookie like blended shakes. Like I have not killed anybody from Baskin Robbins, to be clear. But they had all of these kinds of wild ass stories. It really hurt my feelings to think that people that were fans of mine would think that I would murder somebody in order to gain some kind of substance that would make me feel good, which substance I've never used before. That really, because I'm kind of a sensitive person, that really hurt my feelings, that people would think that. A lot of people thought that I thought were, and I researched a little bit of it as relates to people were saying stuff like that. A lot of these people were like really diehard fans that believed in the stuff that I was doing, that I came from somebody that didn't have talent, that didn't have ability or skill set.
Yeah.
That went on to be a champion. I've won eight championships in, a bunch of years. I've been very, very successful. I've beaten the best on the planet, as relates to off-road racing. And they think that I would do that just because I carry a gun. No. This is what happened. I was very good at hitting stuff, at putting holes in stuff. And one day, my son was with me. He was 1 year old. And some guy and a group of guys were in a car, and they're like, I'm going to fucking kill you. Their windows rolled down. They're yelling at me like, I'm going to fucking kill you. Like, pull over. We're going to kill you. And I'm like, oh, I'm BJ Baldwin. I'm on an F-150 that's supercharged. I'll just fucking leave, and go eat lunch somewhere else. But I didn't have any fuel on this thing. This particular vehicle, it was a F-150 that was lifted. The Herps had 3 different vehicles that had the same system set up. It had a Whipple supercharger on it, and it made 550 horsepower, but it ran fuel down the intake manifold at like a rate that can't be calculated, like 1 mile to the gallon when you were in a hurry.
If that.
Yeah, if that. So I'm sure you remember they had like 3 of them that were all red, and we had one of them that was a duplicate of that particular platform. And I had like an 8th tank, or less than 20 miles in the cell that I was able to, lose somebody with. So it's like, oh shit, now I'm going to have to get my gun involved, because I was at a gun in the car. I had a Corvette at the time, and I did not have that platform in the car. I didn't have anything, and the only thing I had was harsh language. And there was, according to what I interpreted, there was 5 people that were like, yo, I want to take your head off and shit down your throat. So I went to the lunch spot in a hurry, really burned down the roads that I had access to get to the lunch spot. I was taking my son to lunch, and I sprinted him into that particular place, and I said, I gave him to the hostess, which she knew me because I was there every day. I gave him to the hostess, and I said, you got him, I'll be back. And I went outside, and there was 2 really big Simone guys that were on all the vitamins and all the performance enhancing drugs, 330-pound guys that were looked like they could bench press a locomotive. And, luckily, I didn't have to go to work, because that would have been a lot of work cut out for me. Regardless of the training that I've had, in the past, that's a lot of work. I probably would have gotten smashed. And there's, sorry, I didn't know the air sound. You threw a rock up into my windshield, and it cracked my windshield. They're just in your insurance. And from that point on, I thought we were in danger. Like in my old school days when I was younger, I would have gotten out of the car just like you would. You would have had, and let's figure it out. Let's figure it out. Let's break stuff and hurt people. But I had him with me, and I had to, make sure he was all right. I didn't want him to be me got knocked out. Of course, if there was 25 people there, I would just beat them all up. No, if any kind of force multiplier where you add someone, there's a significant disadvantage, as you know.
Yeah.
And I knew that there was a significant disadvantage, and I had to make sure that he was safe, and I didn't have my platform on me at the time. And from that moment on, I studied, and I never had my gun on me unless I was taking a shower, or something else. So that changed my lifestyle to a certain extent as it relates to having the ability to respond to something that was that put me or somebody that I cared about in severe
danger,
100%.
Yeah, I feel you. Okay. Well, I got a couple more questions.
100%.
Dude, we've been rapping for
15 minutes.
15 minutes. What do you want to be known for?
What do I want to be known for?
When you're gone? What do people say about you?
Really? People say that?
What do you want people to say about you? What do you want to be known for?
What do I want to be known for? Fuck,
yeah.
That's a question that I wish you would have asked 3 hours ago. There's not that much time, right? As it relates to your time here. I just want to be somebody that I've never been able to fall out of love with anybody. And Tori knows this. I'm still in love with my girlfriend from 6th grade. Everybody I've ever been with knows that. I love somebody forever. I've never been able to fall out of love with anybody. Like, so I remember the qualities that I really appreciated about with certain people. And, it's a very special thing. And I think if you love, you should love with all your heart and really take care of the people that you care about, and especially the people you can't live without. And that's what I see in Tori, my son Jaden, my daughter Zoe, and Lisa, even though she can be kind of an asshole sometimes, you know how it goes. But I'm willing to lose blood pressure for those people, and as it relates to life as a whole, given that we've both lost several, if not half a dozen of the people that we knew.
Last year's been wild, man.
It's been really wild.
Really wild.
Stephen Bonner, Ken, Robbie Pierce, there's been a bunch of people. We're not here for that long.
Yeah.
So as it relates to legacy, if you're going to love with all your heart until you lose blood pressure.
Yeah. If this was the last conversation that you were having, if this was the last message that you could share with the world, what would you share? What would you say?
Oh, that's good, Sean.
Yeah.
That is really good. Talent doesn't exist. If there's something that you love, obsess, learn everything you can about the particular thing that you want to use the time that you're here on this planet to pursue. Use it. Learn everything you can about it, regardless of what people say on the outside or the inside. Do what you can to be the best version of yourself that you can be, and one day you might wake up being the best in the fucking world. And love people with all of your heart, and do not be shy. Tell those motherfuckers that you love them, regardless of what other people think about it. And Tori knows this as well as I do. I love her with all my heart. We'll die for her. And there's a wide variety of other people that I love. And, I tell them I ain't shy. I fucking tell them I love them. Because tomorrow's not guaranteed.
Zero guarantee. Zero guarantee. What's your favorite part about being a dad?
Seeing myself. I'd have to say seeing myself, my son has certain qualities, that have not had an impact. Like, I have not deliberately given him certain experiences to where, he would reflect something that I responded to in my childhood. But, my dad, as much as I loved him, he had a tactical advantage. He had people that were extremely dangerous that loved him very much. So he'd only been in a couple of situations where he had to defend himself. And my son does not have that advantage. That's a very long story for an entirely different podcast.
We'll do episode 2.
Episode
coming
2 is
soon.
gnarly. I don't even know if I could talk about that stuff because the statute of limitations doesn't exceed my life expectancy.
I know being a dad, and I know, watching you not only through social media, but knowing you, how important that is to you, how important it is to being a dad, or being a father is to you.
It's very important. I didn't realize it until I got, until he existed.
Yeah.
Because I didn't ever want to be honest with you, and I'm ashamed of acknowledging this, but I didn't ever want to be a father. I didn't think I was fit to be a father. I didn't think I was responsible enough. I
don't think anybody does, to be honest with you.
Right?
I don't think anybody's like, you know what, I'm going to be fucking great at this. I'm going to create a human, and I'm going to be the best at it ever.
Right?
I mean, you have a kid, and you're like, what the fuck did I do? Holy shit. I have to, this is mine. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You can't just be like, it's not a library book. Here you go. I'm going to return it, and this is yours forever. This is
people don't know what love
to feed
is.
it, to protect it.
Oh my God,
it's a different world.
It's
different
gnarly.
story.
That's a very significant output on you, and I'd love to say it'd be like that sometimes. No, but if you have reproduced and you have a child, it's different. It's very, very different. You have some kind of, you have a certain type of response to that yields a certain amount of love that's unmeasurable. And with Jaden, with my son, like, one thing I'm working on with him right now is, can I say pussy on the internet? Okay. I was a bona fide certifiable pussy until I was 17 years old. I got jumped by 11 guys that accused me of something that I did not do. And I got hurt. I got hurt really bad. And I was like, I'm not going to fuck with this no more. I'm going to hang out with the guys in my high school that were getting in fights all the time. All the time. They were getting in some kind of conflict all the time that yielded a certain amount of toughness to them. And that's when I had the transition from being like very, very soft individual to somebody that was a little bit harder. And then I got a little bit harder in the decade that followed. But, I'm going through that transition right now where, I'm translating that education to my son to where he's old enough to strangle. And that's a good thing. That's a really good thing, where he's old enough that I can hurt him. And in a certain extent, you know what exactly what I'm talking about.
Just for the note, BJ does not abuse his son.
I sure as shit do. Don't get it twisted. I am abusive and very, very harmful.
There's a really cool space when your kid gets old enough to where you can like choke him out and wrestle him.
Oh my God.
I fucking love it. I'm not going to lie.
I love it, right?
My son's 16 and like being able to like wrestle with him and like legitimately. Yeah. I'm like, yo, you're going to sleep. Yeah. You're going to go to sleep. It's the best thing.
100%.
I love it.
That's the moment, and they go by fast, but that is the moment I'm experiencing now for the last 9 months. So his mother and I don't always get along. I don't love her very much. But she's like, I'm trying to get him into jiu-jitsu for a while. Let me take a drag because this is going to be...
Vaping.
Don't smoke.
Kids, you know what I mean?
Don't do that, dog. So she had him in a class where, and no disrespect implied or intended, but where they weren't murderers. And you know, and I know, because we came in at a time where there was no accountants, there were no people that were, dentists, nothing of that nature. There were people that wanted to be able to learn how to harm other people because they wanted to make a career out of it. So we were the only people that we didn't want to pursue that avenue.
Right.
You wanted to
but
pursue
you were
that
still
avenue.
hanging out with them. You're still rolling with them.
I was still getting murdered by these people. You know, because you wanted to be a professional fighter. I didn't want to be a professional fighter, but I wanted to learn how to be extremely powerful human being. So, I went through the pathway of being a very soft human being until I was 17 years old. And then, I hung around with a group that got in trouble a little bit and punched people in the face a little bit. And I was kind of in that group to where if somebody was threatening somebody or harming somebody, then I was the remedial action. Hey, BJ, this is what happened, or not this is what happened. This is what is happening. And can you keep this person from providing injury to this person, male or female? And I went down that path, and then, I went into jiu-jitsu when I was 23 years old. I've been in it for 20 years. So I was in the classroom when there was nobody in there except for people that wanted to be professional fighters. That's it. Those were the only individuals. So everybody off of UFC's Tough Enough 1 through 5, I had rolled with, I had wrestled with, I had tried to break those people's arms, and they have tried to do the same with me. So I'm going through that moment with my son where I'm trying to train him how to hurt people so that he never has to. You know, so he's the most dangerous person in his entire.
It's a wild
circle.
experience, and like knowing it's almost like you see the future because you're living it, and you're looking back at the 16-year-old you, but it's your kid. It's the same thing I'm going through, and there's that balance of like.
How old is your son?
He's 16. He's 16, so I mean
Mine's 14.
He's in that space. Well, I have a 13-year-old and an 11-year-old, so I mean they're right in that pocket of. What am I going to do? Who am I? The emotions, I'm with the tough kids. I'm with this kid. I'm with that deal. Like this thing that, you know what I mean? And I remember very vividly being 16 and
my dad wasn't like that.
The feelings and the whole thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. My dad wasn't like that because he grew up in an environment because everybody respected him because of, and, you know, to a certain extent, you know, I have to modify what I say about this because, you know, I love my dad very much, but everyone was, he's going to watch this, intimidated by him because of who he knew. And that was 30 years ago, 40 years ago. And that's not the case in today's world. Like I don't have that advantage. So I have to manufacture an individual that can delete somebody, you know, with the ability to keep himself safe. So in jiu-jitsu, like, you know as well as I do, jiu-jitsu is running wild in today's day and age. Like everybody does jiu-jitsu.
Right.
So you have to separate him from the crowd that's like, okay, we do jiu-jitsu so we can say we do jiu-jitsu. We do stand-up because we say we can do stand-up, to the people that are like, and that's the crowd I got him in, like, we want to be dangerous human beings so that we never have the, you know, the concern for getting hurt.
Jordan Peterson talks about it.
100%. I love Jordan Peterson. I love Jordan Peterson.
Yeah,
he's
me too.
Awesome. He's awesome.
Dude, I feel like we could talk about racing, we could talk about guns, we could talk about being a dad. I feel like we could talk about
that's episode 2.
Everything forever. I feel like we should. We need to get another bottle of whiskey and have another conversation.
2 or 3 more bottles.
Okay. Final thoughts. What are your final thoughts?
My final thoughts is release this episode. Tomorrow's not guaranteed. Tell people you love them.
I like that. I dig it. I think with as many people as we've known that have checked out, you can't say prematurely because it was their time. Their ticket got punched. And although it's terribly difficult, it's reality. I think that's very, very sage and sound advice.
100%.
You know what I mean? Go to bed knowing that you said everything that needed to be said. You shared everything that needed to be shared. And I feel like if your ticket was punched, that's the best way to do it.
And that's 100%. You know, regardless of how you perceive that particular individual, regardless of who it is, you know, you could be like, fuck you. You fucking don't say, like, you don't appreciate me or whatever. Like, there are people in my life where I'm like that with them, but I still tell them, like, motherfucker, I love you. You know, and I respect you, and I appreciate every moment I get with you. You know, and as it relates to my last remarks, I would say time is not guaranteed.
Amen. One of these days I'm going to decide to grow a pair and get a big boy truck, and I'll race against you.
Bro, come on.
It'd be great. I mean, I've already beat you in the gun world. You know what I mean?
Burn. Hard burn. I love it.
We'll do it one of these days, but
that.
Dude, I appreciate you, man, for real.
Dude, come out. You have an open invitation.
The unicycle. We'll race the unicycle class.
Hell yeah, do that.
You know what I mean? Something
let's
along
go
those
through
lines.
4-foot bumps.
I'm down.
118 miles an hour. Cheers to that.
BJ Baldwin, you're a goddamn
Thanks
scholar and gentleman. Thanks for chatting.
It's an honor and a privilege to be on here. I really appreciate it.
We'll chat soon. Thanks, man. See you guys.